Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiffany Dell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport roundup. We look back on a weekend of no Formula One, but a massively entertaining motorsport from all over the world, including INDYCAR at Road America and HYPERCARS at the Glen, MotoGP at the marvelous Mugello, to Formula E in Indonesia, Supercars at Hidden Valley, and NASCAR at Pocono. That's right. Pocono. Thank you. German GTs at the Nürburgring and British GTs at Spa, which is a bit of an odd one. And back home to BTCC at Alton Park and British Superbikes at Snetterton. There's loads to get through. Who needs Formula One? But first and foremost, what have you been doing? You seem to do more damage at home than you do driving a Formula One car and racing.
A tree attacked me. I was on my quad bike, towing my flail mower, as one does, going to mow the meadow. But I hadn't done it for about a month, and things had grown a lot. And I was just ducking down to some trees with low-hanging leaves. They're always there. Little did I know that hiding behind the little leaves was a very low branch, which sort of took my head off. I had glasses on, sunglasses. That's what the worst of it. I think it was the glasses cutting me open. But yeah, not pretty at the moment. But you know, these things happen.
I think it's a bit of an improvement, to be honest. And for those of you that are listening and not watching, Tiff's got some cuts and bruises all over his face. And actually, joking aside, you've had, touch wood, hardly any major motoring incidents, but you nearly killed yourself a few years ago in the house as well. You fell over the banister.
Fell down the stairs, fell over the banister. Not drunk, I quickly point out. Start sleepwalking, sleepwalking.
You were lucky then, my goodness.
Unfortunately, I was able to sit, having damaged my face, and watch a wonderful weekend of motorsport from around. That's what we try to do on this channel, is to not be obsessed with Formula One, although we are obsessed with Formula One, to take you around the world, to open your eyes and ears to what else there is to watch when there's no Formula One. And nothing better than INDYCAR around Road America. This, I think, is the best road circuit in the whole world. In terms, it's about 4 miles long. It's got every type of corner. It's got overtaking possibilities in about 3 or 4 places per lap. And it just produces great racing. And the other thing about INDYCAR is that, you've got 27 cars around this track, and all sorts of private teams. It's always got the same car, basically, but the big teams like Penske and the others, Gibbs, are better and quicker, but got better engineers. But, the little boys can have their moment of glory, and there's no better glory than our British rookie, Louis Foster.
I know, amazing.
Who won the Formula 2 in the NXT last year and got it on pole position. 1.16 seconds ahead of Álex Palou, the multi-champion superstar. I mean, it's a wonderful moment. Obviously, his engineers, got the right tricks for that track, because it's the circuit where
spit it out. What are you looking for? A name?
It must be the brain. Our number one female driver won the NXT race last year.
Jamie Chadwick.
Why was that name gone from my head?
I don't know. It's funny, isn't it, when you get to our age? Well, you're a bit older than me, but
you start to tell a story, and your story's on one line. As soon as I leave my story, then anyway, forget all that. It's a magnificent circuit. But it's all about these big INDYCAR races. Unfortunately, they're very much about fuel, because they have to refuel quite often, and tyre strategy. And they have to run the red softer tyre at least once and the black slower tyre at least once. And they do have like 3 or 4 stops in these length of races. And it's a bit like Formula One. On the 2 tyre stop Formula One races, in the middle of the race, you don't know who, because Carlos Sainz is leading. Hold on a minute, why is he leading?
Is he doing a 1-stopper, 2-stopper, 3-stopper? Yeah.
Well, you get a lot of that in INDYCAR, which does take away from the pure race that you're watching. And the tacticians are the master craftsmen or craftswomen of the team.
Plus people.
So you sort of don't really know what's going to really happen until the very end. Because for example, Louis led from pole. It was wonderful. And he briefly led from Scott McLaughlin, who was third on the grid. Palou, though, started on the black tyres. Now, looking back, that was maybe the master strategy because he ended up winning in the end, as he always does. But the first and second out front is Louis Foster and Scotty McLaughlin, and they finished 11th and 12th without really sort of seemingly doing much wrong. They disappeared of the pits quite early because they were on the red tyres. So, of course, then they dropped back in the pack for those that started like Palou on the black tyres. And there's lots of overtaking going on and full course yellows and crashes and things and happening. So lots of safety cars going out. And then it's only towards the end of the race where the people emerge that have got it right. I know that's slightly frustrating as a spectator, but as long as you understand that that is going to happen, and it's only really towards the end that you suddenly get a full picture. And it ended up, funnily enough, they all three stopped, the top three who finished. Then so did Foster and McLaughlin. So it's not to see if they stopped once more, but maybe they stopped at the wrong time. Or Foster said his handling went away and he didn't have a fresh set of reds, the softer tyre, to make time up. So through it all, towards the end of the race, again, it was one of those races where if you stretch 3 stops, you're going to stretch your fuel, so you're doing a bit of fuel saving at the end, or you can go 4 stops and race flat out. We had Palou, he was running out of fuel, but he just about held on from Felix Rosenqvist, who qualified 12th, he finished in 2nd, and Santino Ferrucci, who qualified 18th and finished 3rd. So it's complicated because what happened to all the other front runners? Well, Joseph Newgarden lost control and crashed for the second week. Last week, he went over the top of Louis Foster. This week, he lost it all on his own. So even the top boys can fall off the run. They're all opposite locking, there's going out in the dirt. And the track's got this wonderful downhill hairpin left. And if you do go wide, there's rough concrete. So the car bounces around. It's not a smooth tarmac car park, or else there's gravel to go into. But anyway, it was amazingly, yet again, Palou came through to win. I don't know how many races he won this year, but he was.
He's leading the championship by almost 100 points.
Yeah.
Interesting. I looked at this when Louis got his pole. Louis Foster's. He's now 23rd in the standings. So it's crazy, really. You would never get somebody that far down the grid sticking on pole position in Formula One. I know it's different, and I do like the fact they have a lot more cars. Well, it says 34 drivers here. So there's a big
some
old
don't
grid,
do every race and switch change.
Exactly. Yeah.
But another things that amaze you, like David Malukas, who qualified about 5th, I think, is very highly rated to be maybe taking Power's seat next year at Penske. Anyway, he got nudged off at turn 2 into the gravel. So the race is going on, the full course yellow comes out, and the crane gets David Malukas out of the gravel. Then all of a sudden, you're watching the end of the race with the front runners. Hold on a minute. That's David Malukas, who had 5 stops and finished 7th.
Wow.
So he's been off at the gravel.
5 stops?
5 stops. But obviously, if you have those stops when the cautions are out, you're not losing too much time. You might lose a bit of track position. But anyway, so it's a bewildering sport, but it's so entertaining to watch the cars and the overtaking moves they're all making. Ferrucci ending up running out of fuel on the halfway around the closing down lap and ending up having a beer can thrown at him, which he happily drank, which the FIA, I'm sure. Can you imagine the FIA? What fine would you get? You parked your car after the race, you've got out, you've waved at fans, you've been thrown a can of beer and you've drunk beer in front of young children. You probably even swore.
Brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant.
So I'm afraid I love INDYCAR. I think it provides massive entertainment. Not every race is exciting, but around Road America, it's just to watch that circuit and to dream. I'd love to race around Road America. But Palou won again.
So what's he doing next year? What's Palou doing next year? The world's best driver, in his opinion?
He's
clearly very good, isn't he?
Well, we hope Cadillac, but I don't think they're going to prize him out of the contract. That's the trouble. And he'll end up, staying in INDYCAR for life if he doesn't move now.
Why would you, if you are that good, and clearly he's exceptional, why would you go to Formula One with a team that hasn't really got a clue what they're doing?
Everybody wants to be in Formula One.
But if he's that good, Tiff, he can get a drive with a decent team. Well, say decent team. Cadillac clearly know what they're doing in motor racing, but they're brand new. Yeah. They're advertising for over 60 jobs in Formula One. So there's a lot of going to be a lot of rookies in the team, and new car and new technology.
Well, so he was supposed to be in the McLaren. That was the big. That's why.
Well, it would have been amazing,
because they put Piastri in. They lost. They didn't take him. It was a big contractual thing that his team owed him, and they all sued.
Isn't it funny, these sliding doors in life? Because if he did take McLaren and he took a year, he probably would have been the world's best driver now and probably won the world championship this year. Because look what Lando's done with Oscar, and no disrespect to Oscar, I think Álex is probably a better driver all round. But who knows? Who knows? It's fascinating, really. But where we go next? Next?
We stayed in America for the IMSA race, Hypercars, which I didn't see much of. It went on. There's so much to watch. I was fast forwarding through all sorts of things, but it wasn't on telly, so I couldn't record it on Sky and go times 30. But IMSA's another wonderful. Watkins Glen, it was a Grand Prix track until 1980. It's got barriers right up against the track everywhere. It's a pretty dangerous circuit by modern standards, of course. And that's where Francois Sevet had the awful fatal crash in his Tyrrell. But it's still a very historic layout with historic fan base. 55 cars in this 6-hour race. 13 GTP, the hypercars, 12 LMP2s, and then 30 GT cars. A huge field. So just spectacular. Again, if you take road race cars on spectacular circuits, it's entertaining to watch, even if the racing's confusing, even if you're not quite sure what's going on, which of course happened with hypercars. Some were pitting early and going on different strategies. There was a huge amount of rain after about half an hour. They're all floating around behind a pace car. I don't know how long it was out for, so I didn't watch it live, but it all dried up and they all got back onto their race. Nick Tandy dumped his Porsche all on his own. Again, like Joseph Newgart, both Joseph Newgart, superstar champion of INDYCAR, goes wide, curves a bit rumply-pumply, just runs a bit too wide, car snaps in the wall on the inside. Tandy, multiple superstar winner for Porsche, ran a bit wide at turn 1, just edged over the curb, and it goes all rough and horrible. Formula 1, we went off in this crash because the road was a bit bumpy. But, you have to have edges of tracks which might cause an accident without health and safety getting in the way.
Tell you the time that I raced against Nick Tandy.
Ford KAs, yes. He didn't crash in that race. But it was a huge shunt. He went out wide, he just came straight back, exactly the same as Newgart, but he actually destroyed his BMW. BMW's worked on the pace. I'm not sure they've had a balance of power alteration.
It's a Porsche, wasn't it? What are you on about, BMW?
Yeah, Porsche. Well, I said BMW. Yeah, Porsche. Because they dominated the early rounds. Because, of course, Nick won Sebring 12 hours.
The Penske Porsche.
In the Penske Porsches. Anyway, it was Tom Blomqvist that came to the wheel. Again, fuel saving came into another race that ended because of just the way the yellow flags, full cautions. You go in with the last full caution, then you have to stretch your fuel or have a splash and dash. But no, it was Tom Blomqvist, the British driver, son of rally driver Stig Blomqvist, the proper Stig, and his Acura, along with American Colin Brown, that came out top. Followed by 2 Cadillacs, came second and third, and surviving Porsche was fourth. A little side story, Romain Grosjean struggling away in the Lamborghini. It's not that competitive. He did a 2.5 stint. It was really 2 hours and 45 minutes. And they've interviewed him, but I saw the picture. He did look really hot. And he said, I'm absolutely cooked. And I know what I'm talking about when it comes to cooking, which I thought was a nice line. And he looked and said, I can't believe it. He said they got no drinks bottle, no cool suits, no aircon. Well, if you're a driver, surely you can insist at least on a bottle. But apparently the Lamborghini hasn't got cool suit, aircon, or even a drinks bottle. And he did 2 hours and 45 minutes and reminds us of the more money.
Back in your day.
So, entertaining. And just for British drivers, Paul di Resta won the LMP2 class, with Johnny Edgar was second in the LMP2 class, and Toby Sowery was third in the LMP2 class. So a few Brits out there earning some money. And the Brit Dan Harper won the GT3 category. So some Brits on all the Brits on all the podiums. In fact, they won all the classes because, of course, not Nick Tandy, Blomqvist is British. So entertaining out in the Glen. Then we come back to Europe. Mugello. And we went from Road America, the most wonderful, the best racetrack in the world, maybe to Mugello is equal to it. This magnificent. And both those circuits have...
Yeah, but for bikes.
Well, no, but Formula 2 used to race at Mugello. I raced there in the Ferrari Challenge. I raced around Mugello in that one-make finale, the world finale.
Formula One's not exactly going to look good, is it, around there? Do you think it'd be a good circuit for Formula One?
Yeah, because they've got a huge long straight. Maybe it's the only one. Yeah. They wouldn't overtake at any other corner, so it probably would only be a huge. I mean, the bikes do 220 miles an hour. 220 miles an hour. And when they show them slipstreaming past, the camera seems to make you think you're closer. And they seem to be going so close to the bike they're overtaking, with a bit of side draft, I guess, even in bikes. I don't know.
Well, a little bit too close for a couple of people.
Yes. But like Road America, it's just huge drops and climbs. It's the hilliest there. It's a wonderful natural amphitheatre bank of spectators that used to burn yellow flares all day long for Valentino Rossi. But
now they just boo at Marc Márquez.
Yeah, boo at Marc Márquez. But they did have a Ducati stand, and the Ducati was celebrating what it was, the 80th birthday or 60th birthday or something. They ran their bikes in a black colour scheme, which must have been the original Ducati. Okay. Anyway, racing, it was yet again the same results, but fantastic racing between these three at the top. Again, it was a Marquez.
You say that it's so boring because Álex isn't going to beat Marc, and he's the only person that can get anywhere near him at the moment, and it's just. Yeah, mate, come on.
But the opening 6 or 7 laps of both races, they were just rubbing leathers, and I know it's only 3 bikes. And the other bikes weren't too far behind this weekend. So, yes, I know the results are a bit, but just to watch the best at their best and so diving up the inside at the last minute. But yeah, Marc Márquez came out on top of both races.
So what would happen next year if it was as dominant with those two next year? Do you think Marc will let Álex get the wins? Because he's not competing. He's not competing against his brother. He's letting him have the wins. Well, everybody
says, yeah, but he overtook
He's
quite
not,
aggressively.
Tiff. He's
last weekend at Mugello, he overtook quite aggressively. They're at 3 wide, 200 miles an hour down to turn 1. I think Álex came out on top on that occasion. It was just because Pecco Bagnaia was having a better weekend. He qualified 3rd, he ran 3rd, finished 3rd in the sprint, but was struggling in the Grand Prix. Still doesn't like the handling that much. And Fabio Di Giannantonio stole 3rd place in the podium to be the only Italian on the podium in his Valentino Rossi team, the VR46 satellite Ducati. So it's still all Ducatis.
Bagnaia's 110 points adrift of Marc Márquez. I know they have 3 races and a sprint every weekend.
No, sprint and Grand Prix.
Is that it? Is it?
Yeah,
I thought there's more.
Moto2.
Why do I think there's more?
Because we always talk about Moto2.
I know that. Yeah.
No, just 2 races.
Cool.
But Moto2 is one.
I've only been doing this podcast for 4 years.
Fourth
and been to see it.
4th win of the year for Spain's Manuel Gonzalez. Now, he's 22. It's a funny one. He's a bit of a slow burner, Manuel Gonzalez, because the other sort of kids coming up to the rank, they seem to go straight Moto3, Moto2 up, the real talented, obvious ones. He's still only 22, but it's his 5th year in Moto2. He won the Talent Cup in 2017. Then he went off to Super Sports for a year, won Super. So he didn't do Moto3 at all. Came into Moto2. Last year, finished 3rd in the championship in 2024. But, all of a sudden, he's the man to beat in Moto2. He's got a team around him that works for him. Whereas Jake Dixon on the other end, who led the championship early on, 17th this week. 17th.
He's having a mare the last few races. How has it changed that much?
Because he's on this Boscoscuro, which I think is a Yamaha-sponsored chassis. Yeah, but at the beginning, they didn't develop it well. I think the Kalex chassis, all the Waledas are a Kalex chassis. They've all got the same Triumph engines, but they're different frames. And those Triumph engines sound so good. When you get a pack of them screaming down the Mugello straight, they just sound like the best motorsport engines out at all, full stop. But they've tried experimenting. I mean, the first Boscosuro chassis was 7th place, and Jake's teammate was 12th. So Jake says he's trying experimental setups to try and help the Boscoscuro riders. The others,
he also said, I quote, "It feels like I've lost all ability to ride a motorbike."
This was going to be his year. He moved to the top VDS team that's won so many championships. But VDS, just when Jake gets there, decide to switch from Kalex to Boscoscuro. So yeah, what a shame! Really a shame. In Moto3, our only British, well, it's 2 Brits actually, our leading Brit, Scott Ogden, qualified 3rd. or even second. Second, wasn't he, the end? Second. Amazing. So he's got the skill. We saw him get a podium, but then he lost the podium because he pushed someone aside. Small matter. In the wet, he's really quick. And on his own, he's quick. Then he gets mugged at first corner. He's sitting on the grid for the Grand Prix, saying, yeah, I'm really happy. I'm going to find second. This could be, we've been on the pace all weekend. But I'm never any good at the first corners. He's saying that before he starts the race. And he always, as I've documented so many times on this, he always loses 2 or 3 places on the first lap, even more sometimes. And in this time, he dived up the inside to take second place at turn 1, battled briefly up front, but then slowly got shuffled back, and then he got pushed really wide and lost the pack in front and finished 12th. But closer, Scott, but still, where the pack fighting goes. I mean, they're so brave, these kids, and Scott's maybe not got that quite element of risking danger. They just slice up the inside of the one in front, because if you fall to them, those slipstreaming down the straight, you can go from 4th to 12th down one straight before turn 1. It's such a long straight. So then during the next lap, you've got to really slice your way back up from 12th to at least 6th to be in the pack. And he wasn't doing that enough, Scott. He was sort of still just, But the win went to another Spanish sensation, Máximo Quiles, who won by 0.006 of a second. Wonderful entertainment, wonderful. No rain, brilliant. Going to talk about Formula E quite early on for a change, because we were sort of going around the world, and I watched that. It was quite good because it was Saturday night in Jakarta in Indonesia. So I woke up Saturday morning and thought, I might as well watch it. And they had a wet qualifying, which sort of mixed things up a bit, but not a lot, because qualifying seems a bit of a lottery. And then the race. I
quite like the qualifying though. Formula E, they do that shootout where
it's good. Format. I agree. But it seems
if you haven't seen it before, it sort of narrows down. But what I don't get is then if you're the best, or you get into the final 2, then you only get 3 sets of tires for the weekend. So that doesn't seem fair to be the best and use all your tires.
You get handicapped. They like handicapping people in Formula E. That's the whole point. Make sure nobody dominates. You've got to make the rules. And it was an incredibly dusty track. Then it rained and qualified, and the race was half at a drying line, growing. Of course, they ran one tire, so they didn't have to worry about the slicks and they faffed about for about 3/4 of the race, as they always do. The trouble was, because the track was so dirty, when they went offline to get the attack mode, they ended up understeering into the runoff dirt and rubble. So they lost lots of places, some of them, even hit the wall a couple. So, in fact, Bernard Barnard, our British boy, he did that and lost a lot of places and never recovered. Anyway, after all the faffing about, what do we find? We find none other than Dan Ticktum in the lead, being caught very quickly by Eduardo Mortara. He was actually incredibly lucky, because Mortara still had about 30 seconds. He was on his attack mode, which is 4-wheel drive, another 30 horsepower. And he 50. Caught up Dan, 50 horsepower.
I think it's 50, 350. Well, no, it's 350 kilowatt instead of 300. So I don't know what that is in horsepower.
Yeah, it's about, I think it's 30 only, but whatever.
Okay.
But he was just coming to the straight where he would have breezed past Dan, although Dan would have probably done a bit of weaving, when a full course yellow came out. So then you're all back in line, and your attack mode ticks away now. So you've bought your last 4 minutes, but you don't get the next 2 minutes because
absolutely tough luck.
So then they were both without any attack mode, and despite constant pressure on his gearbox, Dan held the Swiss Mortara off to win. And I called him the enfant terrible, because of course he's got a lot of detractors in Britain. And he was the one that cut off about 15 places to T-Bone Collard at Silverstone. But I think we talked about it before, and you weren't sure it was him. But it was. That was Dan's huge. And he got banned for a year by British driving. Lost a years of career. And as you know, we've seen him in Formula 2 and Formula 3, slagging off everybody, blaming everybody else all the time, phoning his team.
But he's special. He's a very nice lad in real life, but he's the same. He's the same. He's very special. Nobody understands me. But you know what I'm like. I'm old school. I just don't think you air your dirty laundry in public like that, especially with the team. The team is hard enough. You don't want to make any wrong mistakes. But I play a lot of paddle tennis, and the worst thing is when you hit one in the net or hit one out, your teammate, you see, but steak like that, and I do the same.
Do you walk backwards at every point to that little fist, that pathetic thing they do in tennis? Do you do that touch?
I got a lad that I play with, because paddle tennis is typically always doubles, and he's a lovely, lovely guy. I had to tell him last game, look, you got to stop this. Whether he does it, touch every point, whether it's a win or a loss, he wants to give you a little. Come on, touch. And it's like, mate, no, please stop it. But
anyway, so amazing.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just about Dan finishing that race. You know, his first win, his Cupra Kiro. I was waiting for a huge, effing bleeding, whoa, saw everybody else. And he was the most quietly sort of, great race. I've got to hand everything to the team, the engineers. He actually did the right thing.
It was all about the team. Yeah, it was all about the team
for their strategy. And he says, no, I did my bit of driving. And, he did say that I was on the sort of Formula One level once. But I looked up I didn't realise he'd had such a pretty rough year in Formula 2, because according to the last time he won a race, and I don't count his 3 reverse grid sprint races, his only wins in Formula 2 were all reverse grids. So, I don't count those.
Yeah.
So the last real race he won was his 2018 Monaco win. Macau win, which is huge. Winning around that circuit, you've got to have talent. And he won it in 2017 and 2018. So that was his last real straightforward race win. So, he's battled away all his life. And he's always
nobody else could do this. No other driver could do what I do. That was probably his best one.
Yeah, well done, Dad. Plenty of people pretty criticised.
Ollie Rowland's still miles in the lead, 172 points.
He was off in qualified, didn't get. He went wide, didn't he? Let's try to qualify when it was wet. If you went wide, the grid was a bit jumbled up because nobody really got that many consecutive laps in.
But so you got Ollie Rowland's first by a mile, and then you got the 2 Porsches, and you've got the other Nissan, Ollie's teammate, way down in 19th position. So does that mean Ollie is just an unbelievable sensation? Because normally your teammates are a good barometer, isn't it, of how well you're doing? Same with Cupra, I guess.
Funny enough, he stayed in the same team for many years. And there's so much seat changing that goes on in Formula E, for obviously money luring people away, or different contracts and everything else. So I think Rowland's had to make great consistency with his team, with his engineer, and they've got it sussed. I mean, he just had a terrible qualifying session, and it was a 1 lap, quickest, because the track was drying. So, he didn't make it hit the wall, and that was him out of quali.
So they'll be going to Berlin next, then London, I would say.
That's it.
There's only 2 left. Yeah. So surely Ollie Rowland has won.
Is there not one more? I don't know, Jakarta, Berlin. No, it's just they're both double headers, I think. So that's 4 races. So you've got 4 rounds.
And what do you get? 20 points, is it, for a win or not?
More, I don't know. If he retired in every race, I'm sure mathematically someone can beat him, but I don't think they will.
Yeah.
So well done, Dan. Well done, Ollie Rowland. We've got Brits out there sorting out Formula E. I like all this British. That's why I do these stories. We're winning in IMSA. We're on pole in INDYCAR. We're winning in Formula E. But we're not winning in supercars. Pop down under to Australia.
What sort of accent was that?
You always take a mickey out of my accents. To the Darwin Triple Crown in Hidden Valley Raceway, which is right in the middle of the top middle of the whole of this magnificent, huge Australian circuit.
Northern Territory, crocodile country, big salties.
But it was a Triple Crown because championship leader Brock Feeney swept all 3 races in his Red Bull Camaro to take the top of the points table. So it was a big clean sweep of the Darwin Triple Crown. I don't know anything else about it, but I'm sure it was entertaining up at Hidden Valley, mate. That was almost Australian, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cobber. And then we leap back across the planets halfway around the world to NASCAR in Pocono. You put me off now. Pocono. Pocono. For the most dreary NASCAR race. You see, I encourage things, but I say it truth. It's not a good race. It was dull. It's called the Tricky Triangle. And on your own, it's a very challenging track. They've got one corner you have to brake a lot down the tunnel term has got a bump. There's always bumps over the tunnels, every NASCAR track, because where there's a bit of substance under the tunnels. But they have these amazing restarts, a huge wide track, packed crowd, great crowd. They all go 3 wide down to turn 1, but gradually, after lots of possible moves and stuff, it always had a single file, no overtaking. And so it goes on for lap after lap. A couple of, didn't have many yellows either. There was a couple of brake disc explosions, including on Bubba Wallace's car with a disc, because they break a lot there for this one tunnel turn, so the temperature builds up. A lot of braking, and if you don't cool your brakes, obviously if you have less air going to your brakes, you have less air resistance. So probably
what's Bubba short for?
I don't know,
because you've got Bubba Watson, a golfer. Is it like Rab is short for Robert in Scottish?
I'm lucky if I remember his name. That reminding me who Bubba is. I don't know. Please tell us below where Bubba comes from. However, again, fuel saving, another race of this weekend where fuel saving became critical towards the end. And Chase Briscoe was the one that did it, but have his first win of the year, to become the 11th winner to go into the shootout, leaving only 5 places on points. And there's some big names that still haven't got into that final 16. Who'll be very upset if Van Gisbergen's there. They're not, but that is the way the system works. So yeah, dull as ditch water, but another winner. NASCAR report over.
Okay, so Bubba is a nickname. So Bubba means brother or boy. So, for example, Bubba Watson, the golfer, his real name is Jerry.
But why did he get called Bubba?
Because it's a nickname. It's a nickname short for brother.
Wasn't the runner in the film called Bubba? No, what was he called?
Yeah, Bubba Gump. That was Bubba Gump Shrimp.
Maybe that's what everyone's Bubba.
Bubba Wallace. I'll tell you what his real name is in a minute. Anyway, no, it won't. In the standings, your man that I said never wins, Carl Larson, is second, which I'm amazed at.
Yeah, points. Yeah. No, he's just
had
a bad run. He finished about 7th, I think, last week. He was in the train following round.
Never. Well, you say he's had a bad run. It didn't feel like he had one for a long time. And then, yeah, Byron first, and then Carl Larson second.
Teammates.
Denny Hamlin third.
Hendrick. Dirty Den. Got the wind's blowing outside.
Who's your second favourite NASCAR racer?
Oh, now I'm going to think about the name. The 45.
Who's number 45? Oh, let's move on.
You remember the car numbers. Little short ginger boy. Because he runs the walls the same as Larson. We support when Larson was banned for a year. We followed him.
Okay.
He hasn't had a win yet. He's one of the ones down in the points. Tyler Reddick. And he's one of the ones that needs a win or got to grab one of those points places. He drives like Larson. Right, where we go? Back to Europe. Not much left. We're just great GTs. The Nürburgring 24-hour race. Which
what place that is, isn't it?
I've never been. Have you been?
Yeah, I have actually, but I've never driven around it, bizarrely. And I can't believe neither of us have driven around it. But
I've driven around it many times.
I've
never raced there.
Oh, there you go.
Never raced.
But how did Max Verstappen, and I believe this, I believe that he's not going to lie, he doesn't need to lie, but how can he get out there, never go around there before, and set an unofficial lap record?
He's been around there hundreds of times in a private road car without anyone knowing it, I'm sure. But he was in the race. Was he in the race? I think he was actually in the race.
No, he wasn't. He was testing at Spa in the week, which is quite funny because all the Formula One drivers were at the New York premiere of the Formula One movie, and he was testing at Spa in a GT, but that was at Spa, not at the Nürburgring. I don't think he was in the race anyway. I'm sure he wasn't in the race. And he's too big just to go around there in a normal road car. He would get spotted by someone somewhere.
When he was younger. When he was 12, he probably went round when he was 12. Everybody goes round the Nürburgring. If you live in Germany, you've been round the Nürburgring.
If he doesn't, he lives in bloody Holland. He doesn't live in Germany.
The party ran strong as always, 24 hours, loads of drama. But the winner on the road, the Porsche that won, was given a 100-second penalty for tipping an Aston Martin onto its roof, which is a little video that many can see on YouTube. And that handed the win to a BMW team. But that's all I know. But it was just the Nürburgring 24 hours. Again, it's one of these like Le Mans. You go there, you party, you drink beer with the Germans, and you wander around the track. It's just a wonderful visit. Not that I've done it. You can just see by the people that go on Twitter and talk about it. Then to Spa for the British teams. They always go to Spa. They do a couple of overseas races in the British GT Championship. 3 hours, no rain, Spa, no rain. It was strange. Quite a few track limit drive-through penalties being handed out, the dreaded track limits. A win for Aston Martin from McLaren, followed home by the two Lamborghinis, who were moaning about balance of power and top speed up the Kemmel Straight, which everybody in balance of power is going to have a bad weekend. And I'm sure they get to a twisty circuit where the Lamborghini's brilliant, and the Aston Martin will moan about the balance of power because the Lamborghinis are quicker around the corners. And it's such a hard thing to do, I think, if you're organised, because that is the balance. Literally, the Lamborghinis are quicker through the twisty bits and slow on the straights.
Yeah.
And if you give the Lamborghinis more straight line speed, they'll win by miles because they're quick on the straights and quick round the corners. So it's very hard. But I think over a season, I think they'll go to a track which suits everybody. So you'll get a Mercedes track and a McLaren track. And it is one of those swings and roundabout situations, balance of power, that you just have to live with and carry on. A BMW won the GT4 category. So BMW's winning GTs, winning in both Nürburgring and Spa. One GT3, one GT4. And then we come home finally. Come home for our two British weekend events, the BTC at Alton Park, then the BSB at Snetterton. Alton Park, when we're all bathing in glorious sunshine down south, it always rains at Alton Park. In my racing career, I always remember, I used to say there's a cloud that lives above Alton Park. I think it's the Spa. It's the British Spa of motor.
Yeah, but it didn't
circuits.
on the Saturday. The Saturday was glorious.
No, I know that a glorious Saturday, but there's always somewhere close by at Alton Park where it's going to come out and catch you. It was a very even Stevens weekend for Tom Ingram and Sutton. They both there was 1 point. I think Sutton got 1 point more than Ingram. So it wasn't much change.
Like, in the final race, it looked like that Sutton was, because Tom Ingram wasn't doing very well. His car wasn't really working very well when it was rain.
No.
Yeah.
And talk about balance and power. Visually, that Hyundai's got a bit more straight. I don't say this controversially, but it just seemed to have a little bit more.
No, it's just the exits. I think it's literally just the exits.
Anyway, Tom won the first
you would
race
know better. You would know better than me.
Yeah, they never got close to the Fords when the Fords probably handle better. Same story. So Tom won the first race from pole. It looked like he was going to dominate the weekend. But because he was in the top three, he had to switch the hard tyres, again, like INDYCAR. They had to go, couldn't run softs in race 2. And he did an amazing job to keep it fourth place, hanging on. But there were so many safety cars, it always helped him. He kept on hanging on. Nobody could overtake me on 3 of the corners. But it was quite interesting. Actually, Ash Sutton did a clever little trick because he finished fourth. He deliberately let was Chris Smiley by. He was doing a really good race in his Hyundai, having a really good weekend. But the commentators thought it was that Smiley had the extra boost on that lap. But instead, it was almost like Sutton literally backed off, let him by to fourth. So then he didn't have to put the hard tyre on for the second race, which was a sneaky trick. But it worked out because he won the second race easily. And the other thing in the back of everyone's minds was that if it rained for race 3, they wouldn't have to use the hard tyre because you got wets.
Yeah.
So if you do that trick, you'll then go through a weekend having soft wets. You never suffer because the slower tyres were very slow this weekend. But I mean, Ingram did this amazing job to hang on to fourth. Whereas was it Dan Camish? I wrote down some of they dropped so far back. I can't find how far they dropped back now. Because Camish and Chris Smiley dropped way back 9th and 14th, I think, on the hard tyre. The other two that had to wear the hard tyre in race 2. So reverse grid put good old Gordon Shedden on pole position in his Toyota, having had a season out or 2 seasons out. I'm not sure how long now. So he was 9th in race 2, which that was the number drawn for the pole position for the reverse grid. And again, he hung on really well. He had all sorts on his bumper. Sutton caught him up to finish second. And Ingram got fourth, recovering as it dried out a bit. He got back. He was about 8th or 9th, wasn't he, for a long time?
No, he was 11th or 12th for a long time. Yeah.
So again, Tom fought through.
What was Snedden doing at the start? Did you see the start of the final race? For those of you who didn't see it, he was at least 4 feet back on his pit box on the grid when he started. And everyone else was like, right on the line, as you can imagine. So he's got a 4 feet disadvantage straight away going into the first corner. He held it really well. He got a brilliant start.
Why? Deliberately?
I don't know. I'd love to know. But
There is a thing, right? So when it
if
rains,
it's wet, it's rubber,
wet and rubber, wet and oil, are you allowed to hang back then? Can you be
What?
short of your grip
Well, he was.
position?
He was about 4 feet back.
Yeah, because someone
on the
said
start.
there's loads of black marks, mate, on your line.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
who's your favourite
driver?
BTCC? Well, he's 52. He's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Who's your favourite BTCC driver?
What, of all time?
No, now, currently racing.
Well, currently. Well, I'm Ash, a bit of an Ash fan, but I'd say I'm an Ingram. For Ash and Ingram, they're so good, both those drivers. Well, and Jake Hill, but Jake's had a terrible time again.
Jake's had a really bad season.
He had 2 7ths and 1 5th. In fact, he was closest to Shedden in the wet reverse grid race, wasn't he? And then he had a moment going to Cascades, and dropped off onto the grass and lost about 8 places. The whole team were dropping their heads, and he's down now to what, 5th in the standings.
But he's miles away. He's 100 points away almost.
Yeah. It's between the two now. Pretty sure it's an Ingram or Sutton title.
Well, it's early days, but you would think that it's going to be one of those two. Definitely, I agree.
Because Camish and Robot are now 3rd and 4th with Hill 5th. And of course, also at the end of the day, it was the end of an era. End of the rider era. And I worked with Steve, one of my very first grandstands. I was the expert analyst at the Formula Ford Festival. I did that with Murray Walker first. Then when Murray stopped doing the local stuff, I worked with Steve. And funny enough, my eldest son, Jack, is named after Steve's Jack, because he arrived in the commentary box, this little 2-year-old, and Steve said, "This is my son, Jack." It's a lovely look. I thought, that's a perfect name for a boy. So, mind you, although he gave me a good name for my first son, Steve also introduced me to his agent, his theatrical agent, who was absolutely useless. No. It was absolutely useless at getting me any jobs at all. I stuck with this useless agent. I thought it was Steve Ryder's agent. He must be good. He was rubbish.
Did he ever interview? I know you worked with him, but did he ever interview you as a driver?
No, I don't think he would have done. We worked together, but never. No. Of course, Nikki Shields is taking his seat. Nikki's, I worked with her at the Silverstone Historic. I think she'll be very good at taking over that spot. It's a very hard shoes to fill. I mean, he's
so is she going to give up Formula E now, because she can't travel all over the world?
Well, no, there's no clashes. There's no clashes because Touring Cars now has this ridiculous 6-week break. Who thinks it's a good idea when you try to build, publicity for a championship? Alan Gow, I don't know. Alan Gow, you couldn't tell him he's done anything wrong because he's always right. But 6 weeks off until the 6th.
I don't know Alan Gow to comment on that. I was
by
laughing
which time
at your
Nikki's
old manishness.
So she'll be free to do that. So she'll be taken over on the 6th of August at, where are they? On the 6th of August, 3rd of August, Croft. That will be Nikki Shields' first outing as the front man for BTCC.
Well, she's
front woman,
a brilliant
front man, didn't I?
She's a brilliant front woman. She really is a very talented person. But does she? Well, I don't know. Does she know about anything about BTCC, about the racing? We'll see.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. When you look at the
you've got the experts
whose name I never remember. Formula One front man. Which is the front man? You're introducing your stars. God, what's the name of the Formula One's front man?
Who are you talking about?
You're worse than me, aren't you?
The guy with the croaky voice.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I know who you mean. Yeah.
Nobody thinks the front man. It's always the commentators you remember the names of. Crofty.
True.
So yes, that's the end of a huge era of Steve going off.
50 odd years. So he's your age. 50, is he 74, Steve?
Yeah, very close to that.
Looks a lot bloody better than you, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, only because I'm driven into a tree.
A lot more successful than you. My goodness, he's done well, that boy.
And finally, we swooped south and east to Snetterton, where it didn't rain at all. It didn't rain in Snetterton.
You don't like Snetterton, do you? I quite like it.
I don't like the new circuit at all, no. When I raced on because the original circuit was a fantastic racing circuit, huge, long, straight down to hairpin and back up through the bomb hole S's, through Coram, flat through Russell Corner, where I went end over end in my Formula Ford when someone spun in front of me. Wonderful track, the old set. It's just got worse and worse, as far as I'm concerned. But the weekend started pretty soon, of course, with this accident to Glen Irwin. The Ducati lead Ducati rider flipped himself over and broke lots of bits, pelvis, and small things that these bikers do, several bones. So Glen will get well soon, Glen, but he's out of the championship chances now, really. But I don't think even he would have stopped Bradley Ray, who seems to be another one that's going to win a championship well before the end of the season. Because
It's a bit early to say that, isn't it?
Well, get your points table out.
140 versus 110. Carl Riley's. Really? Yeah, it's close.
Oh.
And you got Leon Haslam. He's come from nowhere. He's over 100 points. Just.
I thought Ray had won every race of the year so far. It feels like he has. But he swept Snetterton, as you'd say in America. Carl Ride had 2 seconds and a fourth. He was on that pushed Bradley closest. Also on a Yamaha, of course. So his Yamaha was up the front. Tommy with his Honda had 2/3 and a fourth. Leon Haslam, as you said, Ducati switched Ducati from BMW. He had a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Rory Skinner had a good weekend. He qualified third, but he didn't finish the first race. Not sure why or how. And then had a really good second place in race 2 and fifth in race 3. But I didn't watch too much of it because there was so much to watch, including the cricket and the tennis and the golf. And Tommy Fleetwood. Oh, I stayed up to watch Tommy, who I taught to power slide in a BMW. Met him way years ago. Lovely man, great golfer. Never won an American event. And blew it on the last hole. 1-shot lead going into the last. And he bogeyed it. And Keegan birdied it.
Can we go back to motor racing for a second? I've got a question for you. BSB, yes. The corner is called Hamilton. It's the left-hander where the tyre stack is, or normally is. Was the tyre stack there for British Superbikes? Do you know?
Oh. Which is Hamilton? I need a map.
So
the new
Centre Straight.
I don't know the names.
Okay, Centre Straight. First corner's called. I only know the names because I'm looking.
Ritchie's. That's still Ritchie's.
Ritchie's. Yeah. Then the hairpin is Montreal.
Yeah. Next
left. The left-hander is Palmer.
Uh-huh.
All right, Jonathan. The tight left-hander then, going back on yourself, is Agostini.
Right.
And then you go far. You got a fast left-hander.
Yeah.
Well, that's Hamilton. There's normally a big tyre stack on the inside there.
No idea. However, I do know, because I read the report, that he had the accident on turn 9. So have you got a map?
I don't know.
We'll count the corners on your little map.
Well, yes, I am. But so Montreal is just one corner, isn't it? So hairpin's just one corner. I know so much about motor racing. I don't even know that. 1,
just count the names.
3, 4,
Ritchie's.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, yeah. So that's at the end of the straight. You got Brundle, where you turn left, and then where you turn back on yourself, that's turn 9. So loads of people go off there.
Yeah.
So it's more. The trouble is from the end of the straight, and then you sort of don't break in time and get it all wrong on Brundle. Then I would say Nelson. You go off on Nelson, don't you? Go straight over.
Could do. Anyway.
And then the best name.
What was that question? Where's that question come from?
No. I'm just asking whether they have the tyre stacks up for race for the bikes.
I thought we were live for a minute, and someone was asking the question live. Why were you asking that question?
Because I want to know what I don't know whether it was there or not, because I didn't see.
For what reason?
I only watched it out of curiosity. Do they have this big tyre stack that is very controversial in motor racing?
Apex of the chicane.
What do you think I meant?
I don't know. I was totally lost. Well, because there were tar barriers, not retrosil, when the guy got sued, Snetterton, for kid. I thought that was a question.
No. You got that fast left-hander and
moving on to next weekend. Formula 1, of course. Austria for the half of the old Österreich ring that I raced around in Formula 3, which is now a bit of a go-kart track, in my opinion, but there we go. But does supply plenty of drama, plenty of track limits, plenty of my wing mirror was ahead of your front tyre. That'll be going on into turn 2 or 3, what do they call it now? So there'll be plenty of drama, Formula 2 and Formula 3. So again, that'll be good. Álex Dunn, this really talented Irish driver who's leading the Formula 2 championship at the moment, is taking over Lando's car in FP1, not Oscar's, but Lando's car. That won't help Lando, I doubt. And also the Swede, Dino Beganovic, is taking over Leclerc's Ferrari in FP1.
Can I just clarify something? Because if any listeners or viewers are watching, it's not an advantage, it's a disadvantage to Lando, but Oscar has to do exactly the same again at some stage in the season.
So swings around.
So yeah, exactly. So just if you thought it was favoritism.
But right now, just following Canada, which driver needs more time in the car to get
They probably had it thought out before they even started the season.
But Bogdanovich of Ferrari,
just Academy. Always looking for that clickbait, aren't you? Always looking for that little bit of a niggle.
You're the clickbait man. It's funny, Bogdanovich, who's the Swedish star, got signed up with Ferrari, but he won Formula Regional Europe, Freca. But he's done nothing really since. He's 10th in the Formula 2 standings. He had a couple of 2 years in F3 where his best was 6th. So although obviously talented, it's sometimes surprising they contract these juniors. And it's like they put them in at the end of season, when they have to run a junior, and they'll put them in, but they never give them a real chance. Who's the guy? Oh, no, I'm going to start another side story without remembering the name. The Russian that's now doing INDYCAR. What's his name? Anyway, really talented. Won Formula 2, or came second in the Formula 2 championship. And they used him in all these FP1 sessions and all these winter testing when they have to run a young driver. But it was just a question of ticking the box.
Of Vanovich then or something like that, but no, it's not. Anyway, yes.
Anyway, MotoGP at the fantastic Assen in Holland, wonderful motorbike racing circuit. That will be spectacular to watch, I've no doubt. The Rally Boys head off to Greece for the Acropolis, hoping Elfyn Evans can get back ahead of Rovanperä because he's beginning to lose that championship lead, so we need a good run from Elfyn. Where the NASCAR boys now, while Pocono is boring as hell, and I admit it, I can almost guarantee Atlanta will not be, because they reshaped Atlanta about 4 years ago. It's only 1.5 miles, but it's a 4-corner standard-looking oval, D-shaped. But they increased the banking to make almost everyone full throttle, certainly in qualifying. So they've almost made it like Daytona and like Talladega. So it's sort of mini Daytona. They'll be going around 3 wide, flat out, bang it, and so it will be exciting. So I should be watching that. I should be watching MotoGP, and I'll be watching Formula 1, Formula 2, and Formula 3. And I'll be looking at WRC highlights when they pop up. They have very good highlights on YouTube, World Rally Championship, end of the day. They had a nice first day highlights.
Yeah, really good.
And it's the best way just to catch up with rally.
I'll be at Heavingham, but I'll still be watching some motorsport. Heavingham Concourse up in Suffolk, which would be good.
No, I'm somewhere. I got advertised. I'm somewhere.
I'm
at the motor show, Super Motor Car.
We don't we don't really mention Formula 4, but it was also at Alton Park, undercard to BTCC. And it must be so disheartening for these young lads. Lots of young lads, really talented guys. And Ella Lloyd, who is brilliant, who's doing incredibly well in the academy, F1 Academy.
Yeah.
All the camera action, everything, all the onboards, all the exterior cameras, wherever she was, and she wasn't towards the front most of the time, it was all on her. And I get it, because you want to promote the females in motorsport, but it must be really disheartening for the young kids, the boys that are out there battling every week as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, I'm going to be at Silver Lake, the Motor Fest, down at Eastleigh Football Club. If you're down the south, I'm down there on Saturday.
Supercars one up at Heavingham, Hypercars.
There's a Formula One Ferrari simulators, supercar passenger rides, Q&A sessions with footballers and me, great food, drinks, trade stalls, and loads to explore. We've got Horsepower Hill, driving up the hill, but Mini Goodwood. I'm not very good at driving up hills at fast cars, so I think we'll stop there, actually. Join us next week. Thanks for joining this week. See you next week. Bye.